We are going to talk about getting started with Screencastify. I should have added getting started with the new Screencastify. We've been really fortunate to be partners with JCPS for several years now. Kathleen and I have worked closely over those years, and I think this might be the most excited we have been, both about what you all are doing at JCPS, along with then come some of the new advancements of the tools and products of Screencastify, and then how we can help support you all during that process. So we have a few main goals. The first is thinking about the new Screencastify, and much of what you're going to see, even for those of you that are Screencastify All-Stars or that have used the tool a lot of it looks different. There is some things that are new, that are fresh, but then there's also some more just like facelift type user experience imagery that might be a little bit different. Now, the good news is that almost all of the core functionality within Screencastify has not changed. So the workflow that those of you who have used the tool before are accustomed to, that's not going to be much different. It's just better. It's just a little bit faster. It's a little bit easier. It looks a little bit better. So all of this we are super excited to share with you, along with some of the, I would say, main core changes in the tool and functionality, one of which is about our new language translation option. So that is really exciting in the way in which we're going to be able to hopefully support you all with reaching all of your students and their families. This is going to be especially a brief refresher for most of GCPS, in that I know that many of you are quite familiar with the tool already. So we are an interactive video platform that allows you to create and assess students very easily. The simple to use component of Screencastify has not changed. So those of you who are familiar with the tool, you'll notice that all of that is still the case for Screencastify. All of you already should have the extension on your device already, but if for some reason you don't, you can go download the Chrome extension for Screencastify. But again, many of you are already familiar with the tool and you should already have that on your school device. JCPS has an entire teacher-wide license. So any teacher, staff member, administrator, all of you are going to have unlimited access to anything and everything that I'm going to speak about today. When we get to all of the functionality and components within how you can reach out and interact with your students, the benefit of this is that knowing that your close relationship with Google, along with ours, there's going to be a ton of overlap in the way in which you can really scale and build things on one another. Now, Screencastify as a whole has been very productive in its way in which we help teachers individually create video. You will also see that there are some additional functionalities, like adding YouTube Free to You within Screencastify. So if your preference is to add questions and trim and share videos within Screencastify, you're certainly going to be able to do that as well. But what we also want to just kind of briefly and quickly give is a just overview of some of the new images within Screencastify overall. So what you're going to see here is that there is a YouTube Free to You or Premium Library add-on that you're going to notice on the left-hand side when you log into Screencastify and you actually get into your video library. Now, this is a wonderful benefit because we all know that user-generated content is really important, but we also know that there are those times when a YouTube video does the trick, or there's a really good engaging YouTube video that your students are gonna enjoy when they watch it. So that option is now available within Screencastify. But that's not really, I think, where we're gonna spend the most of our time. Where we're gonna spend the most of our time is really on the significant enhancements and additions to the Screencastify watch page and the added functionality that is there for them. So when you go to your Screencastify, there are a few ways to get to the different areas of the tool. And so with that, I'm going to kind of exit out of the slides. I don't love spending a ton of time in the slides, mostly because I want to try to kind of walk through and show you all where these things actually are going to be placed. So as you look at your Google Chrome browser, which you see here, many of you know that Screencastify is a Google Chrome extension, which we discussed, that lives in the top right-hand corner of your Chrome toolbar. Now, if you don't personally see it up there, it may be because you have not yet pinned it. So you would just click on that puzzle piece, scroll down, finding Screencastify, and then filling in that pin, which is going to allow you to then see the tool always when you log into Google Chrome. When I click on my Screencastify extension, this is the first moment where you might notice that there's a pretty big visible difference between how Screencastify looks right now than how it did even a month or two ago for some of you, depending upon the last time that you logged in. But as I mentioned, all of these are still the same. So like none of the options in terms of recording have changed. What has changed is that it looks better, but it's also a lot more clear with this functionality. There were some things with the customizing of the options that you see when you click on your extension that were not always super clear. So a couple things to point out. The first being is that you'll notice that each time I speak, that green audio line fluctuates up and down. First, kind of just general pro tip, anytime pre-recording, go ahead and make sure that you notice that line fluctuating up and down. That's going to ensure that when your video is completed, that you have audio attached to that video. Another item that now you'll notice is that there is a circular visibility of my webcam. This is going to help you that when I toggle that off, my webcam goes away, which means that if I were to click record now, my webcam would not be embedded. But when I click webcam on, now if I were to click record, my webcam by default is going to be embedded into my full screen recording. That full screen wording has changed, where some of you might remember previously we called it desktop recording. Exact same thing, just trying to be more clear. Full screen is just that. It's the same thing as your desktop. Anything and everything on your screen is going to be recording. A webcam only option implies that, like, if you were to look at the Zoom boxes for myself, Kathleen, I see Jonathan on here too, that box that you see, that would be when I click webcam recording only, it would fill my entire screen. And this is going to be primarily for if I were to want to make announcements or some type of communication that was a little bit more personal or a little bit more clear with seeing me as the communicator. Where full screen is going to deposit that webcam, which I'll show you in a minute, into the corner of the recording. And then last of the three options, which certainly not least, is the this tab recording. Previously, this was referred to as browser tab, but it just implies that if I were to select record while I am on this tab, it is just going to record what is on that tab. This is also important for those of you who might be a little bit more advanced with your Screencastify knowledge. There are times, I'd imagine, when you might be on an online textbook or on a website that has a video embedded. In that scenario, if I am on full screen and I were to select record and then try to record over a video that is playing on my computer screen, and that might be YouTube, it might be a textbook, it might be some other website. But when I click play and I just try to do a desktop or a full screen over that, what is going to end up happening is that post recording, once I go back to watch that, there is not going to be any audio attached to that. Because the way that Screencastify works is that in order for that green line to move up and down, I am speaking into my computer. If I were to select a video right now on the screen, if I were to click play, even though me sitting in this room, I'm going to hear the audio, you all would not, and that green line would not be moving up and down. That's because the extension is not picking up audio coming out of my computer. It's only going into my computer. So if I want to record an embedded video, select this tab and then show more options. And then you'll notice that previously, for those of you that are super familiar, we used to have a tab audio icon. That is now removed. That is because it is now assumed that if I'm on this tab as a recording option, the default is to pick up the tab audio recording. So this is, again, super useful for those of you that are recording embedded videos that you then want to modify when you move on to your actual recording to customize and utilize all things within Screencastify. Moving on, we want to make sure that we, again, are showing you all of the new stuff and kind of how it applies to you in your day-to-day. This is the new My Videos page. There's a few items that I want to point out on here. The first is that premium library icon, which we just pointed out. If you click on this, you're going to have instant access to YouTube free to you that you can filter by grade level, by content, along with kind of the process of inserting those videos into Screencastify. But the purpose of this visual right now is to really highlight one of the more important, or I should say two of the more important organizational changes that exist on this page. The first being is that for a long time, our power users, the teachers that were using Screencastify every day, they were correctly expressing that it would be nice to be able to organize your videos in a folder type format on this screen. For a long time, it was just all your videos one by one. And if I wanted to find them, I had to go in here, type in a keyword, and then it would pull up any of those videos that hit with that keyword. But I couldn't group things by class or by period or by grade level or by reading group. Now you can. So you'll notice that there is a button up here that says New Folder. When I click New Folder, I can title that folder anything that I want that is going to allow me to organize my videos within said folder. So when I click Create, you're going to notice that it's going to insert a new video, a new folder that I can place videos into on the top of my screen. When I select those three dots, I can rename, I can move to, or I can delete. This is going to be extremely helpful for several reasons. The first being is that it's just a nice organizational tool. If you teach 5 sections of history, you'll be able to have sections 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Or if you're going to group by content or by grade level, each of those is going to be a big add. But this is also a future forward-looking piece of foundational tool functionality within Screencastify. There are people on the call, I'd imagine, where you might be grade level teaching partners, or you might be in the same department, or maybe you are history teachers, but you work at different schools. Each of those are just a sample of the scenarios in which having a shared access to folders would be helpful. So this option of seeing folders as you do now, in the near term, hopefully before school starts, maybe a month or two from now, there's going to be a shared option where if, for example, just because again, I'm still seeing Kathleen and Jonathan, if the three of us were a grade level, say we taught 4th grade, I would be able to select these 3 dots, and then there will be an option that's going to say share with, and then I'm going to be able to type in Kathleen and Jonathan's names and share this folder with them. They will then be able to access that folder. When they open one of my videos, it's going to instantly prompt them to make a copy of that video, but all of the inserted questions and structural components that I have changed will be preset. So that share option of sharing content and creating different lessons and materials and subjects is going to be a lot easier for you all at JCPS to be able to do. So that folder option, Latrice, good question. So it's going to be hopefully a month or two in terms of the shared option. But right now, all of the folders, you should see those available for you to start organizing, with the understanding that eventually you're going to be able to share entire folders with peers or any type of kind of scenario, as long as it is a teacher controlled like organizational unit for you to be able to share from. So you just won't be able to share the video with students, as opposed to you'll be able to share with all teachers, regardless of whether or not they're at your school or not. So that's the first thing. The second item is that there's been a lot of usage increase, especially at JCPS. When you click on these 3 dots, there's now shortcut options available for all of you so that you don't have to open this video before you actually execute an action. Like, for example, you may want to just edit your video and you know right away that you want to edit your video. If I were to select edit, it's going to instantly take me there, as opposed to previously pre-shortcuts. If I was on my video page, I would then have to click edit and then it would open it up. So it's going to save you steps and time for any of these actions that you are trying to accomplish. So at just, again, a base level, we are really excited about the My Videos access. So coming down to where we left off, the My Videos page is, again, all these options are to help teachers save you time and execute things more easily. But once we get to this page, which is our video watch page, this is, I think, where you're really going to start to see and feel even more of the new options within Screencastify. So a few things that we want to point out. Many of you that have used the tool before, this page might look different, again, depending upon the last time that you used it. Much cleaner, much easier, going to allow you to execute actions simply with saving more time. So a few things that we pointed out up here with these nice purple arrows. we first just want to remind everyone that it is always recommended that when you share your videos, that you are clicking that blue share video button. If you've been around with us for years, there's a chance that you may have been going down to export video and sharing the original Google Drive file. What that does is it's going to take you to the video player within Google Drive. So not only is the kind of clarity and speed of those video recordings less when you share from Google, but it also does not allow you access to any of these things on your right-hand side. So if you were to add questions or analytics or want to see the different AI options that we have, you must share by share video because all that stuff is funneled through that. Additionally, it's going to allow you to track your analytics more closely by doing share video. So if you are still using that export video option, we just recommend please do go to the share video. The last couple, and then we're actually going to jump into how these look and what they feel like from the user perspective. One of the most, I would say, exciting options is the ways that now you can add captions and world language translations to all of your Screencastify videos. JCPS does have unlimited access to the world languages and the translation option, which I'm going to show you how to use in a second, because this is brand new. So many of you, the odds are that you have not used it. So I want to make sure everybody really does understand how you can add captions. And yes, you can add them to old videos. So if you made a video 4 years ago, you still will be able to add them right now with this translation option. And then we'll also go through adding questions. There has been a lot of new additions to our question feature. Many folks were asking us to have a no skip option, that students, you could skip in between questions. You now have the option to customize it so that students can no longer skip ahead. They do have to watch the entire video. So there is a lot of new stuff. It's hard to actually get through all of it, which is wonderful. But at the same time, I know it can be a lot and overwhelming from like a user perspective. So while I want to keep moving, I also want to make sure that we're taking our time and going through all of these things specifically. So I want to get into what a couple of those examples look like and how you use them. So first off, when I go to my videos, and for those of you that have seen videos in the past, you might remember that anytime we want to edit our video, that is the action that we should do first. And the reason why is because once we edit our video, we need to export it back into Screencastify, thus creating another copy of the video. So if I want to eventually add captions or questions, I should edit first, because even if I were to add these right now, once I edit and I export back, I will now have created a new copy, thus negating the captions and questions that I might have already added. So just another pro tip, if you're going to edit first, then do your questions and your analytics and your quiz questions, or excuse me, and your translations. So I'm going to click on add questions, and it's going to pull up a short kind of tutorial base when you are looking at your first version. So it's going to walk you through a brief rundown and tutorial, but I want to make sure that we see a couple of these examples. So I'm going to skip toward this part of the video, and I'm going to add my first question at the 6-second marker. You'll notice now when I click on question type, there is a short answer option. This was previously not available in Screencastify. So I'm going to first start with multiple choice. I'm going to insert my question, and then let's say that I want 3 answers. You'll notice that now I have intentionally left 2 of those options selected as correct. One of the other big asks from our teachers was that they wanted a question type where there could be multiple correct answers. So now you can have options of questions where you are selecting more than one right answer. So you can choose an option where there is 1, 2, or even 3 correct answers for a particular question. Once I get down to that, I can change the point value of those questions, and you'll notice that it says we'll grade this question automatically, and I'm going to save it. From here, I'm going to jump toward the end of my video, and I'm going to add a short answer question. From the short answer options, I can customize the number of characters. If I don't want them to write a ton and I want to keep it like Twitter length and I want to get them to be concise and to the point, I can minimize my characters, or I can leave it up toward 1,000. We will eventually have larger than 1,000 characters as an option. 2,500, I think, is the next rollout, so you can have much longer responses if you choose. And then again, just like with your multiple choice, you can weight those questions for additional points if you want them to be 10 points or 2 or 5, whatever it is that you choose. From here, I'm going to click Save. For our example, we'll leave it as just those 2 questions, but then I'm going to click Settings. This is where many of, again, our teacher feedback come into play here. You'll notice that the first toggle option is to prevent skipping. When I select Prevent Skipping, that will then make sure that my students can only watch the video as it's supposed to be watched. Where previously in Screencastify, I could skip to a question. I had to answer the question, but then once I did, I could skip to the next question. Now that will not be an option. It's going to lock the player into where the whole video has to be watched in order to get to each of those answers. You can insert due dates, and then you can highlight past due responses. So you won't be shutting off any student from turning work in, even if it is past the due date, but you, the teacher, will have a colored-based indicator that is going to show on your data and analytics that the information was turned in post the due date. And once I click Save, now I'm done. I will then be ready to go, and I can finish and share that video with all of the inserted quiz questions. That is, I would say, one of the more significant updates to Screencastify's quiz options. Now, this is also just version 2. Version 3 with more question types and more customizable options will again be ready in about a month or so, hopefully before school starts. As you start to share that video link out with students, you are going to be able to customize that data that you are looking at, both by viewer and by question, to be able to use it for one-on-one conferencing based upon their performance, or whole class conversation and reflection based upon certain answers that they maybe did or did not answer as an entire class. When I go back to my video, this is where now I want to make sure that we see and really can feel the add of the captions and how the world language translation works. We all know that language accessibility has changed a lot over the years, especially as of late when you see an increase in students that are non-native English speakers at home. There are many families and parents that desperately want to support their students, that want to engage with the school and the district, but if they don't speak English, sometimes that's tough. So what Screencastify has done is it has given the option for teachers, creators, any of you, to make videos and then enable captions, but most importantly, it's going to allow the user to select their language of choice when they watch your video. And so I'm going to show you how that works now. I'm going to go to my videos, and just as this was like a question before, like, can you select old videos? And yes, you certainly can. So when I go to any of my videos, if I select it, you'll notice that for this one, it already says captions added. Once I select captions, it's going to say auto-generating captions in the background, and you're going to see that note right up here at the top. Once I click share video, I then will share this video just like I would with any other Screencastify video. It's going to copy and paste. It will take that video to the player, and then I'm going to select play. Now, the first thing I want to point out is that you'll notice that it says, so you hear that ding. That's the English-based caption, which is the default that is set once you click added captions. But if you are a 4th grade teacher and I make a video and I send it home to 30 families at home, they're all going to be looking at this same page. The viewer down here is going to click on captions and translations. You'll see that it says languages is English. When I select English, it's going to give me a drop down of, at this point, it's 50 plus languages. It's eventually going to be 98 plus languages. And I, as the viewer, can then select which of these languages I want to watch my video in. So for example, If this is the language I speak at home, I would select that language, and then all of my captions are going to be based in that language. Let's say that I speak Thai at home. I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to find Thai. When I pick Thai, it's going to instantly change it to the Thai language. Now, once the viewer watches this, it does take time, the initial processing of that, to get it into the language. But the cool part is that any of these languages are available for the viewer to pick from. So once the teacher or creator enables captions within a video, there is a extreme increase in accessibility on the viewer side because they can pick their language of choice. And again, we are consistently adding languages to this. These are all AI generated and AI based, so the accuracy is very good. For a lot of them, it's very good. For some of those that are, like, I would say, the more lesser spoken languages, the accuracy might be a little bit less. But from what we have heard and tested out, people have had really positive things to say about the captions and translations. So each of those two things are extremely helpful with our processing of the video and the way in which we wanted to make the new Screencastify. There's been a lot of questions about students and their ability to create and not create. Kathleen, I think you'll probably be able to best accurately talk about the student piece.
For the students in JCPS, many of you know about our digital resource review. We are not purchasing the student license, so everyone has the premium staff Screencastify license, but since we have not purchased the student license, we can't get the cybersecurity we need for students to use it. However, there are many other options that, if you're here with us today, you'll learn about for what students can use for creating video, and we'll talk about that then, or you can reach out to me and I can help you with that as well.
Thanks, Kathleen. And I think that the best part about these questions is that all of you are thinking about student creation. You're thinking about putting your students in a position to make information and make content and send it back to you and show and exemplify what they do know. So that in itself, I think, is a massive plus. And as Kathy mentioned, there are options, and there's also ways in which submit can be kind of incorporated into that. But want to make sure we touch on the analytics first, because that was a really good question that is very closely tied to this. So when I make any video, this is the page, as we all know, that you are instantly taken to post video creation. When I go there, I'm going to want to click on share settings. When I click on that, it's going to pull up what options I have for my share settings. So as a teacher, if I am actually going to send this out to my students and their parents, I am going to want to think specifically about the type of settings I want to implement. If I am Kathleen sharing a video out just to staff, same question. If you are a principal sending it out to your parents, different answer possibly. So anyway, so first question is that there is, and we actually, again, there's just so many options. I'm going to cancel out real quick. One thing I didn't have a chance to touch on yet is that when you get into these watch pages, as you scroll down, one ad that teachers have been asking for a long time was the ability to comment. Teachers wanted it, students wanted it. So now if I send a video out, I can say, hey, 30 students in my 5th grade class, when you watch my video, everybody is required to make 2 comments, or 1 original comment and then 1 comment in response to someone else. So here is where you can add new comments to videos in response to what the teacher is asking as some type of stimulus. Once I click comment, it's going to give me my comment with a timestamp of at what point in the video I am adding that comment. So you'll notice it says 2 seconds. We're still perfecting it apparently, but it's close. So we are going to then have your shown comment on that part of the actual video. And then I can edit my comment or delete it because I am the creator. And then other people would be able to go in and make those comments respectively, depending upon what it is that they wanted to do. So that's where, when you click on share settings, the first question is asking you comment privacy. If you want it to just be that the teacher is the only person who can see those comments, then you would select private. This way, I can have all of my 30 students comment on the video without seeing their peer comments. So there are different applications, as all of you know, especially from like an assessment standpoint, where I might want a student to comment without seeing others. But then there's also going to be times where I want to leave it public because maybe I'm going to turn this into a discussion forum based upon a particular video. I personally, I was a high school teacher, as I mentioned, so having 120 plus students, I do not want an email every time someone makes a comment. That is certainly preference on your part, but I would imagine that all of you get just enough emails already, so you probably don't want to add on to that. But then just know you will have to go on and manually take a look at those video comments. Moving down, this is the question that was about, how you actually see what students are able to watch and how you as the teacher see those analytics. So first, video privacy. When you send a video out, who can access it? Anyone with the link. And then if you're sending this out primarily to students, I'm going to want to track by email address, because this indicates that me as the teacher is going to be able to see who is watching it, when, and how many times. Once I click save, if I go to share video and then I paste this and I go watch this video. So I click play, I watch the video. Classroom application, I go home on a Tuesday night, I make a 2-minute long video for my students to start class with the next day. They come into class, I say, students, sit down, you have 3 minutes to watch this 2-minute long video. At the conclusion of that time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to my page. 3 minutes later, I'm going to click refresh. And once I do that, I am then going to be able to go in and learn more and understand who is watching my video, when, and how many times. And so each of these options, from a kind of understanding that prospect of the students and who is watching them, as long as you have set these settings correctly, you're going to know if a student has watched it, how many times, and what date was their most recent watch. So if I make a video and I send it home, and that classroom example, if I refresh and then 30 of my 30 students have watched it, I know that I'm good to go. If only 15 of them have watched it, I know that not all were engaged and that we're not quite ready to move on. Similarly, if you are a building representative for something and you send a video update to all of your staff, you can go in and see what staff members watched the video too. And if you saw only 2 watched it, well, then you know that that information was not shared effectively, or they did not engage effectively, maybe is a better way to put it. So the analytics is a very powerful option for students to be able to engage, and then the teacher to understand the level and degree to which students are getting that content. This could get down a significant rabbit hole. And so my recommendation on the new AI options that we have, before anything happens, it's important to understand and master how Screencastify works first. And not even master, just be familiar with it. Once you're familiar with Screencastify, with the actual user-generated components of creation and annotation, quiz questions, all those core functionalities, that's then going to be a time where going into Enhance with AI is going to be an add for you. It's going to be a value add for you to accomplish each of these items that are on this screen here. And we leave this up because you can see over to the right, it says AI Assistant. Now, it is not perfect, right? It is certainly not perfect yet, but it's getting there. And that is going to be taken out of beta very quickly. I know JCPS, Kathleen and I have talked about the beta accessibility, and we're very mindful of that with JCPS. So there is going to be in the very near future that will be not in beta any longer, and you will have access to these features and functions, especially from the JCPS components. When you are adjusting and editing your videos, this is something that we talked a little bit about just before, is that when the creation process happens in the editor, we don't expect perfect, and you shouldn't either. This is about just being a little bit better. And there are times when you want to make a video and then make just a couple quick adjustments to make it a little bit more appealing or palatable for depending on the audience that you're sharing it to. So what I want to kind of go through quickly now is, if we were going to go edit a video, there are some quick, simple edits to make that can have a very profound impact on the way in which that video is perceived. So this was an example of a video that we were using before but we skipped ahead to some of the other core functions before we edited it. And so again, that was actually not the right order of operations. I should have edited first, just as a reminder. But for our sake, it will remind you that you will make a copy of your video. Your views, captions, and questions will not be available on the copy. So I'm going to click continue though, regardless, because if I was going to send this out to my peers or my grade level or my department, I'm going to probably send this video as is. I don't necessarily care if like my friends and my peers see the stuff at the top, if they see my tabs and my favorites or my tools down here at the bottom that I have Spotify on there. But if I'm going to send this out to parents or primarily as a learning-based video, there are some things that I want to be aware of for how I actually adjust those within this video itself. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in just a bit so that I pull the video so that it's almost the entire length of the toolbar down here at the bottom. When I click on that video clip, this editor is intended to be easy to use, but I also understand the contradiction that any video editing has a certain level of difficulty. And especially if we've never done it before, it can be kind of challenging, or like there's a blocker to go in and actually try and edit. And so when you do this, my biggest recommendation, and I was hoping to have another practice time, but I don't think we're going to have time, which is okay. But my encouragement and challenge to all of you is, if you've never used our editor, go in and try. Like, try to use the editor, because it is simple to use once you get the hang of it. But just like anything, it does take a little bit of practice. So my first 2 tips, and we're going to leave it at 2 for the editor, is that whenever you make an edit, start with your edits that apply to the entire video. So in this case, when I look at the front, I see my stuff at the top and bottom. And when I go to the back, I see my stuff at the top and bottom. So I know that I can make a simple crop to this video and make a significant difference with how the video looks. So I'm going to go over here where I have several tools available, and I'm going to click on crop. When I click on crop, it's going to produce this orange box that I can move around on my screen. I am then going to strategically place that box over just what my students need to see, because my students don't need to see the title of my slides or the tabs or my favorites or my tools down here at the bottom. Once I've done that, that's how long it took. It took 5 seconds once you get the hang of it. But again, it can be tricky with understanding the way that the boxes work. I'm then going to pick done. Once I select done, you'll notice that it cut the stuff off the top and bottom. It enhanced the cleanliness, how clean my video looked, significantly with just a couple clicks. The second tip I want to show, and then we'll jump back into some few thoughts before we close, is that there are times when you may want to share videos or share content that has personal information, maybe a student's name or grades or a picture of something that you want to be mindful of it not being shared widely. That is where our blur tool can be a huge add for editing and adjusting videos. Let's just say that my webcam down here was that piece of information that we wanted to hide, or that student face that maybe has not signed a media release. I'm going to select the blur tool, and just the same way as my crop, it's going to produce this box. I am then going to pull that box over whatever it is that I want to protect, and then I'm going to increase the intensity to high. Once I increase that intensity to high, anything behind that box is now invisible. So I'm going to go and show you how right when it hits that edit, it's going to blur that information out. And now you can share confidently knowing that that information is protected. Just like if you're a teacher and you want to share maybe your grade book and how a grade distribution worked, but you don't want to share names, obviously, pull the blur tool over your whole roster. And then you're leaving the grades and the information, and you can share that stuff out without any student name being attached. Or maybe you want to share an IEP because a case manager wrote amazing goals and you want to use that as an example. But that, from a information standpoint, all that info at the top of the IEP, you want to protect. So you'll pull that blur box over the top where it has the name and ID number and grade level. And then you'll just show the awesome goals that case manager wrote down there in the bottom. Each of these adjustments make your video just a little bit better. They can be done with relatively short amounts of time. and they have a profound impact on your ability to share that content widely.